As many of you are already aware, last week, the News with Mr. Pipsqueak published a video featuring whistleblowers on the Stevens County Grand Jury who were speaking out to expose prosecutorial misconduct by District Attorney George Christian in the infamous Toccoa Home Depot case. In response to me publishing that video, Assistant District Attorney Suzanne Boykin, who has been maliciously prosecuting Elder Freeman in the Home Depot case, retaliated against Elder Freeman, who participated in interviewing the grand jurors, by filing a motion to banish him from Stevens County. But Mountain Judicial Circuit Judge Carlton H. Jones III went even farther than that. Despite the fact that Judge Jones had not seen any of the video in question, he not only banished Elder Freeman from Stevens County, where he owns a home and pays taxes, but also ordered him to destroy all copies of videos of interviews with the grand jurors. In an effort to stop the Stevens County Police State from unlawfully kidnapping and confining Elder Freeman under the color of law, the News with Mr. Pipsqueak has complied with Judge Jones' unconstitutional order by pulling down the original video. However, we believe that the misconduct reported by grand jurors is so significant that it is necessary to the well-being of the public to republish this censored video. After 2 years of Home Depot madness, Stevens County grand jurors are speaking out about how they were deceived by prosecutors. On June 11th, 2024, Judge Jones finally lifted the bond condition banishing Elder Freeman from Stevens County. So I went for a trip with the Freemans to talk to the grand jurors who served on his case. We met with and you might be surprised about what they had to say. A quick reminder, the grand jury exists as a check on prosecutors to stop them from bringing false charges into court. They're supposed to hear the evidence and establish probable cause by deciding whether or not the prosecutor has a case. But I'm not certain that the grand jurors fully understood that. On the morning of October 7th, 2024, the Stevens County Grand Jury handed down 22 indictments. Apparently, they had a large stack of accusations, and they finished considering them in only a few hours. So how much time did the grand jury spend on the Home Depot case before they made a decision to indict? Did you hear that? The jurors only spent between 4 and 8 minutes before deciding to indict Elder Freeman on 9 charges. That's less than 54 seconds per charge. You can barely even read the indictment to figure out what the charges are in that amount of time.
So the impression that I get is that the grand jurors do not realize how serious the decision that they were called on to make is. They made a 5-minute decision, but it had long-term consequences. Like, they think that this is just a formality to decide whether or not the case goes to trial, but in reality, it gave the prosecutors a lot of power over my life. I mean, their 5-minute decision meant that I spent months in jail. I missed the birth of my son. My wife was in the hospital for months with serious complications. My business was completely shut down. My name was splashed through the newspaper. Again, this time, supposedly with the credibility that the grand jury looked at the evidence, but, we're finding out now that the grand jury didn't look at the evidence.
According to only Don D. Nelson testified before the grand jury. Remember, months before Nelson gave his testimony, he had been disciplined and forced to resign from the sheriff's office for multiple instances of turning off his body cameras, and Nelson's history of aggression and dishonesty was already known to the sheriff's office. But apparently, none of this was told to the grand jurors. In the Home Depot case, former Deputy Nelson had accused Elder Freeman of attempting to back his truck over Nelson. As my viewers know, there is undeniable video evidence disproving the accusation, but the grand jury never got to see it. In fact, they saw no video evidence at all. Said that he didn't see the video evidence in the case until months later when he saw it on my show. We showed video of Elder Freeman backing out of his parking space at the Home Depot to get his take on it.
If I was sitting on the grand jury, the thing that I would be doing is I would be demanding evidence to prove the case beyond any reasonable doubt, because that's the standard that they're going to use when the case actually goes to trial. And if you can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt without a defense, then how could you possibly prove it beyond a reasonable doubt with a defense? And if you can't probably do that in front of a jury, then why would the grand jury find probable cause and send the case to a trial where it's just doomed to fail? That doesn't make any sense. That's the whole point of having the grand jury. The whole point of having the grand jury is to ensure that doesn't happen. But here we are, because the DA's office was just obviously unethical about this.
So how did watching video of the event change the minds of the grand jurors?
So, this case shouldn't be happening, and it's only happening because the DA's office is breaking all of the rules and intentionally deceived these grand jurors.
There are also questions about the legitimacy of this particular grand jury. According to OCGA 151260, convicted felons are not allowed to serve on the grand jury, but there may have been a convicted felon on the grand jury. For now, we're withholding his name because we have no verification except for news reports. But according to this March 10th, 2016 news article from WNEG News, one of the grand jurors was arrested in 2016 for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. And this arrest happened while he was unlawfully participating with a criminal street gang. If that's true, then this grand juror must have already been a convicted felon in 2016, and then faced fresh felony charges that year. As of press time, we haven't found out any information about whether or not he was convicted or whether or not his rights had been fully restored. But there's a strong suggestion here that Stevens County seated a convicted felon on Freeman's grand jury, contrary to the law. It is undeniable that Freeman has been denied due process in the Home Depot case. The officers who arrested him could not articulate any reason for doing so. No judge ever signed the warrants for his arrest. The grand jury was probably illegally seated. They didn't know that they were supposed to establish probable cause, and from what they say, they didn't establish probable cause. They saw none of the evidence, and after seeing the evidence, at least one of them has completely renounced his finding. 2 years after the arrest, the state has failed to even give Freeman a speedy trial, but somehow the case is still moving forward.
The grand jury could have put a stop to this entire case right there, and they should have, but they didn't. And now they can't take it back. And so this is why a case with clear video evidence proving innocence is somehow going to trial, because the grand jury didn't stop it. So instead of the case just disappearing, which is what should have happened, we're spending years of our time on the case. We're spending tens of thousands of dollars on the case. And most people who couldn't afford that, when they were indicted, they have the public defender defending them. And so as a result, they just plead guilty to crimes that they didn't commit. This 5-minute hearing in front of the grand jury is the closest thing to a trial that 97% of people are ever going to get.
So here's an important message to my viewers. If you ever sit on a grand jury, you are not there to just trust the officer and perform a formality. Your duty is to demand that the prosecutors show enough evidence that they could sufficiently prove the case and achieve a conviction. You are there to protect people from false accusations because the cost of going to a felony trial is ruinous. Oh, and one more thing. If you're on the grand jury right now, you can refuse to hand down any more indictments until the DA brings you an indictment for Don D. Nelson and the Unlucky 13. The following grand jurors either declined to be interviewed or could not be contacted prior to press time. I'm Mr. Pipsqueak signing off, and remember, you should never talk to police without your parents and a lawyer present.